Welcome to NextGen podcast, where we discuss with the leaders who are working towards sustainability. And today I have a guest from Kost Capital, Bodil Sidén. Am I calling your name right?
I think that's great. Not the most
Okay.
international name. It's a very old Swedish name. The French are doing it the best. They say Bodil, but the Brits are saying bottle almost. So that's not the
Okay.
great. I say Bodil in Swedish.
Bodil. Okay. Okay. So
Mhm.
we have Bodil here from Kost Capital. So it's a great to have you here, Bodil. Could you please take us through your journey, through your professional journey and everything?
Yeah, sure. And it's good to be here. I started out in politics actually, so quite a different
Mhm.
background than typical VCs. I worked with the Swedish prime ministers and a lot of different ministers. I was also a
Mhm.
politician myself, and very engaged in especially integration and immigration policies. But then when my center-right party shifted to a slightly more conservative edged and sort of Sweden moved from a more open policy
Mhm.
around borders to a very closed one, I left politics because it didn't feel aligned with my values anymore. So then I
Mhm.
joined Uber and discovered the world of tech.
Mhm.
So from like early cowboy days of Uber to pre-IPO, I worked with the go-to-market team on public policy and comms and learned how to sort of build and scale big tech as Uber was with sort of that very still local presence and marketplace.
Mhm.
So best school one can imagine. After that, I'd advised a few Nordic scale-ups on several issues, mostly related to scaling and commercial, before me and two other guys built our VC fund in 2018-19 out of Stockholm. We invested
Okay.
in between seed and Series A in the valley of death, so basically the funding gap between those stages, and helped them a lot on commercial and the flywheel to sort of increase their growth. We did two
Mhm.
funds, and then I got a little bit of a political itch again,
Mhm.
and felt that I really wanted to spend my sort of hours on something that moves the needle towards a better place. Maybe it was some sort of 30-year-old crisis or something, but
Mhm.
that was really what I wanted to do. So I met a couple of Danish investors that all had been investing into food and that also owned a food development house here in Copenhagen called Kost Studio. And they are a team of chefs and food developers, and they are
Mhm.
just celebrities in the world
Mhm.
of food. So we decided to build our venture fund here out of Copenhagen, but invest across Europe in early stage startups and also build our own companies from inception stage. So we
Okay.
launched 2 years ago now,
Mhm.
and we're still going strong. We're focusing very much on B2B ingredients enabling tech and also
Mhm.
science-driven brands. So that's
Okay.
not so short, but that's a recap of the
Mhm.
past year.
Okay. So you were in politics, then in Uber, like in tech. Then so what made you like look at the food industry and say that's where I want to go next?
I think if you look at the food industry, it's both sort of the problem or the cause of all problems we see globally, but it's also the
Mhm.
solution, I think. It's sort of essential, obviously, for sort of poverty and equality, but it's also related to supply chains and conflicts, which we've faced quite a lot now in Europe,
Mhm.
not the least. It's also related to human health, culture, how we hang around, but also like consumer trends and everything. So this sort of mono agriculture and quite unhealthy products and the food system that we're built that's not really adapted for 10 billion people that we're going to be in a while needs to be modernized and updated. And by
Mhm.
doing that, I think we can also fix health, we can fix climate change. And to me, it's just very holistic and super, super exciting.
Okay. Cost Capital, I have read about Cost Capital. You have this actual test kitchen with chefs working with investors. So why is that hands-on testing so important for how you make decisions?
Yeah, I think we're probably the only VC that has sort of a test kitchen, and it's very useful, not only in our venture building, where Cost Studio actually develops products with the founders that engage in our ecosystem and take it from like early R&D to proof of concept to scale. But also when we make due diligence on our direct investments, they can pinpoint the product and the production and validate, is this the right way to do it? Is it working the way it says to be working? And we can also help other types of investors to sort of make a little bit of a quality stamp, showing that this is actually validated by Kost, and hopefully get more investors into the space of food and nutrition.
Okay. You have mentioned that you focus on B2B ingredients rather than consumer brands we see in supermarkets. So why do you think the biggest opportunity is behind the scene right now?
I think the first waves of food tech were very early. We saw a lot of alternative dairy, alternative proteins, and a lot of generalist capital that, without sounding cocky, maybe didn't roll new food that well. And it was very, very low margins and lots of CapEx investments, and basically an economic calculation that didn't resonate with a VC model, which made these IPOs come out on a very expensive price, and then saw a huge dip. And I think that scared a few people off, because obviously it's intense to build an R&D heavy product while you build a brand, while you try to get distribution. And so instead of doing that, we've tackled it more of a Trojan horse kind of way, going more B2B, improving what we already have on the plate, the existing food products that we all eat, so that we don't take a bet on consumer change, but we also don't take a bet on having to fight our way into the shelves in the supermarket. So my dream is that we can still keep like our food culture and eat how we're used to, but we just do it in a cleaner, healthier, more sustainable way. And if we can develop the ingredients that do that, and also like the factories or the enabling technologies that do that, I think we will come a long way.
Okay, so working with a Kost Capital, you're probably meeting like a lot of founders when you attend pitch deck and everything. So when you meet a founder, what are that subtle sign that tells you that they have high performance mindset?
I always talk about impatience and like overly impatience. I love when people are very curious and just can't wait to figure out the demand for their product, or why the market is working the way it does, or iterate and test and change the products. I think that is a really good trait to have as a founder, and that sort of really high level of curiosity. Because for me, being obsessed about your sort of potential market and your potential customers is everything. And something that I still see in our vertical that is a bit immature. If you look at more software companies, obviously you can build a product, especially now, in like a few hours, you can test it with your clients. But since food has longer development cycles, I think maybe people deprioritize that. But in my opinion, you should go very, very early and really build your companies based on an existing demand, and not like fake create a problem or fake create a demand, but actually be quite honest with yourself and test and iterate. So impatience, market obsession. And then I think in this time that we sort of live in, the engineer founders we had in like, Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and everything, they were in such an early generation that maybe like communication or sort of hiring or storytelling abilities weren't that important. But I think in this sort of day and age, to be very good with people, I think it's something that I also highly value. So you could hire the best talent. You could also have empathy for your clients. You could also navigate your stakeholders, potential investors. That ability is also something that I look for, and that I, with my background, also with politics, really see it's a strong trait to have as a founder.
Okay. If you talk about on the other hand, what's one thing you find in a founder that you think is not going to work?
I don't like when people lie.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be a very Nordic sort of European approach. I know that in the US, it's much more okay to sort of exaggerate quite a lot. But for me, to build trust is really important. And I don't like when a founder, for example, have said that they've signed a client, a big logo, that then in my DD, I find out that they haven't, and things like that. So I think that is just, so lie sounds really harsh, but just slightly, I think conscientiousness is really important in this business. So that's a personal flag for me. And I also don't like when it's in Swedish you say, I think, a lot of talk and no factory kind of. If it's not really execution, but only lots of talk and you engage over months and you get promises, but nothing is really happening and they're not walking the talk. That is also something that I see a little bit as a flag, like large corporate kind of behavior that doesn't really fit the startup world.
If you like, if you're talking about your expertise, if you could help startups with just one core expertise, regardless of stage or sector you are in, so what would it be?
Good question. Obviously, we have our studio that is doing lots of things. So if I don't answer that, I think there are two things that I think I want to help founders with. But I think that also VCs add the most value on, and that's people and funding. Because obviously we come with funding in the round, and then I think the first thing you should do is to spar and work with your founders on how you get the best talent in there early in the runway. If you have 1 or 2 year runway, if you have your best hire end of that, you won't really sort of ignite the opportunity of the funding round. So making sure that you have more hands, that you have more brains that can really sort of help your company become better, and to really, really find top talent and complementary talent. So it's really important to sort of have a sense for like psychology and teams and high performing teams and all, working in this early stage, because team is everything and people is everything. And then the funding is important because obviously in the VC sort of matrix or hierarchy, you have to raise a couple of rounds to get to like profitability and have sort of sustainable business. And to make sure that you have a smart funding strategy, that you're efficient in your fundraising, that you get the best investors, that you have, you know, a deck that's understandable and a fresh data, like those kind of things. Because we see so many decks and we see so many pitches, is something I think that we can also help out with a lot.
When things go wrong in a startup, do you prefer the founders calls you immediately, or do they prefer they try to fix it at first?
I mean, as a team manager in my own team, I always love a sort of transparency in that you talk about stuff. But I don't like when problems get just put in my lap. I think I'm happy to have problem in my lap, but then I want this happen. I try to do X, Y, Z. Based on that, I think we should do A or B. Can I get your input on A, B, C? That's how I like to have the discussion. I don't like to say or hear, I'm stuck, or this doesn't work. Because I think you always have to push your team to really walk that extra mile. And then I'm happy to spar around everything, I think. But it's just to progress the conversation further and to push your team to be independent as well and to go through hard things. So I always try to have like 2 options that you can discuss, or that you ask for specific help. So not like, please review, but like, I really struggle with understanding the market size here. Can you give input on that specifically? So I think that is something you can train in all teams and sort of with founder interactions as well. But transparency is always good. And I mean, I have a WhatsApp relationship with all the founders in my portfolio, and I think that's really important.
Yes. And at Kost Capital, what stage startup do you currently generally work with?
As when we invest, so we invest from first check really to seed stage, I would say. So typically it's a check size between 250K to 750K. So from inception to seed. So out of the studio, we build our own companies. We built an alternative coffee company. We build microalgae companies. We have lots of companies on the way. So any sort of founder that is excited to build something and it's located near hereby should definitely reach out. And then when we go more on the direct side, we target Europe for now, but then it's more like pre-seed, seed stage. You have a concept, maybe you have one client or a client on the way, and that's where we sort of want to plug in and help.
Okay. In your line of work, you taste a lot of things. So, what's the most surprising or futuristic thing you have eaten recently that was actually delicious?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's not a surprising thing, but a dear friend, Eric Allen Rapp, that is venture partner at ReFood, also a food investor, a dear friend and sort of advisor to Kost as well. And he's been a vegan for 10 years. He's been in the space of food for lots of time, and he's really a pioneer. And him and his wife, they just started. I need to pitch it in the right way so I don't make him sort of disappointed. But basically, very sort of comforting, fresh vegan fast food that's called Sloppy Joe's. And
Sloppy
they
Joe.
have a shop, yeah, Sloppy Joe's. And what they've done is they've sourced organic tofu, and they are preparing it with onions and making it really delicious and texture-wise really, really nice. And they chop it up and they use it as a base for wraps and sandwiches. And it just makes it really like meaty without replicating meat. It just gives the same sort of mouthfeel and umami that you're craving. And I'm not a huge, I try, but I'm not a huge tofu lover. I am a little bit picky and maybe I have the wrong job, but I don't like the texture of it sometimes when it's a little bit loose. But this is really, really nice. And it just shows that you can innovate within sort of existing ingredients and products as well. And I just love their take on that, that sort of, this is really nice food. You can get one of their hot wraps and just have it in your little takeaway cup and just eat it on the way home, even though you shouldn't eat and walk. But sometimes I have to admit I do that. But that's a product that I really, really enjoyed. So shout out to Eric Allen and Anne-Marie and Sloppy Joe's.
Okay, so you have worked with politics, then tech, and now in food. So if we remove all of these, so what else do you like to work on? Like, what do you enjoy the most
I mean,
out of
I'm
all this
obsessed with
professional
working.
journey, professional work, out of
I'm
all this?
obsessed with working, but if we remove that, I think how I fuel up is through culture and creativity. I write a lot, I paint a
Okay.
lot, I love art. I went to an amazing Basquiat exhibition at Louisiana, a very nice
Okay.
museum here in Copenhagen this weekend. And for me, just tapping into that creative part of the brain really helps me in my slightly more zero and one work as well. And I'm actually about to finish my first novel. So that
Oh,
is
that's
a
great.
little dream I've had. And writing to me is just such meditation and to get into a flow state.
Okay.
That's a bit of a secret I'm now revealing.
So you cannot reveal that. What is it about the novel is about?
It's actually about the question on having children or not.
Okay.
So it's about a woman that got accidentally pregnant with her boyfriend that breaks up with her because she doesn't want to have a family. So she gets into this choice on whether to keep the baby or not and what to do. And obviously, having children in this world with conflict and climate change is an aspect, but obviously also as women has become more career oriented and have more freedom and choice. Also that sort of equality aspect, but also attachment theory and your own background and sort of what you inherit and what you push forward to your own children and how you can break patterns is something that's also interests me. And
Okay.
I think it's the biggest choice you can make, and it's a big thing and a beautiful thing, but something that I think people might sometimes be left a little bit alone reflecting on. So I would love to have a more open conversation about that because it's related to lots of dreams and hopes and fears that I think it's worth putting up on the surface.
Okay. So this book is like it's a non-fiction or it's like mix up of
Oh, it's a
everything.
fiction.
Okay, it's a fiction.
Only read fiction. I
Uh,
I don't think I've read any non-fiction since I finished university. I
uh,
love fiction. I love what it does to writing. I love how it makes um the understanding different types of people getting into characters. I think fiction is
mhm.
just a beautiful world to step in to. Yes. Need to translate it to English.
Oh, it's in like Dutch or
Swedish. Swedish. So I'm Swedish, but I live in Denmark. Yeah, it's in Swedish.
okay. Okay. Still, I'll have to like. So, do you only release in Swedish or in English as well?
We'll see. I think that depends if anyone is reading it or if it's gonna end up on the sales table.
Okay, so yeah, is it your first book or you have?
First
Okay,
book.
then congratulations.
Thank you.
Maybe it would be a next like bestseller of where are you right now? And
I'm about to do the final editing. It's quite a process to write a book, I must tell
okay.
you. You think that you're done with your
Yes.
script, but then the real work starts. Then it's like in the details of things. But it's really interesting to learn. It's a little
Mhm.
bit being backstage.